Hello and welcome back to another episode of JobsWorth. I am back on the sofa again. I've just returned from recording next week's episode, and I'm now recording the introduction for this week's episode, because despite all my best intentions of being super well organised, it hasn't happened. Nevertheless, this week we are sitting down and speaking to Gemma and Will Jones, who are the husband and wife team behind Wilma's. Now, if you are from this neck of the woods being Essex, you've probably heard of Wilma's. They are a brand that's synonymous with all the best things that you can eat, provided you've got a sweet tooth. So we're talking about cookies, brownies, cupcakes, birthday cakes, wedding cakes. If it's got sugar in it and it makes your mouth water, these guys make it. That's not strictly true, but you know what I mean. These are all the things that I now need to limit my intake of because I've just reached that age. This is a really interesting conversation. Gemma and Will have got, I think, an incredible work ethic. You'll come to learn what they used to do in a previous life. I'm not going to tell you, you're just going to have to listen or watch the episode to learn that. But I think it's their work ethic is a byproduct of the conditioning they probably went through, working incredibly hard for very long hours. And that's what they've been doing since 2016, which is when Wilma's was founded. They have built a bakery brand to 3 shops, 25 staff. And as you'll probably come to learn during the course of the episode, I don't think they've finished yet. They've got a hell of a lot further to go and more aspirations and goals that they want to achieve. For me, I think it's a really lovely lesson in starting again as well. They both met in a former life, in a former career, doing very similar jobs. And were, I guess for want of a better word, were forced to leave that world behind, and they started again. They found something that they could get passionate about, and they've built a brand that is so well loved in this area, and no doubt it will be well loved further afield too. They say in the episode that people have travelled hundreds of miles to get their hands on a Wilma's. How amazing is that? They've created a brand that we now say a Wilma's instead of a cookie or a brownie. I'm getting hungry just talking about this. But anyway, enjoy the episode. If you've got feedback, please feel free to get involved in the comments and stay tuned for next week. The podcast always starts, and we're going to kick off with the opening question, and it always starts the same way. And I'm not going to ask if you've ever listened to the podcast because that puts you on the spot. But
I was actually listening to it this afternoon.
Well, that's really helpful then. So you'll know the opening question already. So the opening question is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up? So I'm going to start with you, Gemma, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So I trained as an actor.
Wow.
That's my background. We're both performers. I'm ruining that.
Don't ruin it for me.
I've spot the surprise.
Still the spotlight.
And my mum always tells me that as a kid, I always wanted, apparently, to be a singing, dancing hairdresser. I'm awful with hair.
Trifecta.
Wow. But performing arts was the career that I chose, and acting. I did modelling, and that took me to a place of meeting Will in Australia. We worked on cruise ships at the time.
Okay.
So I never thought that I would be doing this.
Yeah, this is quite a departure from where you pictured yourself
it's so
going.
less glamorous.
Yeah. But so how can you remember the age you were when you first had that dream of?
Oh, I wanted to perform from a really young age. So
Okay.
I was always in performing arts classes. Literally, that was always my dream. I think we've found out I have ADHD.
Okay.
So we think. We're still waiting for the final diagnosis.
Yeah.
But I think I was just basically an attention whore from such a young age. And I always just like making people laugh and just really performing.
Helps if you're funny though, doesn't it?
It does, but which obviously I'm not. So
Did you have any inspiration around you growing up that was kind of fanning the flames for that, or were your parents more in a position of, oh, this is what Gemma wants to do, we'll support her in that passion that you had?
So I came from, I come from a single parent family.
Okay.
And my mum, I think she was just really go with the flow. She was like really chill. Oh yeah. And I think I was just quite bossy. So
Yeah. There was one path that you were going to go down,
and that was it. Yeah.
Very clear.
But the thing is, like, from such a young age, like, I think I was 13 when I got my first part-time job. And mum always like took me to dance lessons, although I was never the best dancer, and singing lessons and acting classes. And that was, it was supported, but I think I was the one that there's an audition I found out about and I want to go.
Okay. That's an amazing drive, though. And I guess that's something that has developed even more as you've gone on to set up your own business too, to have that kind of innate drive that's the direction I want to go in and I'm going to go and do it.
I think so. I think, well, like from having my first part-time job, I then didn't stop. And I then, when I was at college, I had 4 jobs. And then I was modelling and acting as well.
Wow, okay.
And at uni, I had 5 jobs. So I'm just a bit of a juggler in regards to those sort of things. So
cool. So you've said, again, we'll go into a bit more detail about how you met, but bring us up to that point then, Will. When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So we met on cruise ships, as Gemma said. So I wanted to be a captain. No, I'm joking. I didn't. That come later in life. No, I wanted to be a dancer.
Okay.
Which I subsequently went on to be.
Yeah.
So, that started from, I don't know how old I was. I remember being really young. My sister, the weekends, my dad had to work. So being a child, I couldn't sit at home on my own. So I used to have to go to my sister's dance practices. And I remember sitting there, arms folded, grumpy little kid, like, this is rubbish, when you play
like
football
thunder,
or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the teachers, the dance instructors, like, come and have a go. I was like, I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that. It's for girls. Yeah. In the end, they managed to get me up. It was disco dancing, to begin with. Really, and yeah, it was great. And then, I just remember dancing around this hall to Janet Jackson. It was great.
And did it click very quickly?
Yeah, I loved it. My sister hated it. Like, my sister's like a tomboy.
Right.
She would rather be in a field rolling around. You know, she went on to actually join the army. So
right, okay. So
we are complete polar opposites. She hated it. I loved it. Put me in a field, I'd stand there and cry. She'd be like, roll me in dirt.
So you've got those stereotypes, boys and girls, and boys are going to go off and do one thing.
Way around,
yeah.
But I said I was quite young. I don't know, 8, 9, maybe even a bit younger. And then, it went on from there, really. And then when we were maybe 11, 12, maybe 10 or 11, we were lucky enough to go on a cruise. And I remember watching the shows and just thinking, wow, I want to do that one day. I then wasn't particularly bothered about the West End. I didn't want to go on to do things. I just wanted to travel and do cruise ships because I just had this goal in my head from such a young age. I was like, I just want to be on a cruise ship that looks amazing. And so that's what I went and did. And then eventually found this one.
Yeah.
So when did you meet? Do you remember the year? Putting you on the spot now.
Oh, go on, Will.
Oh,
started something. It was 12 years yesterday. 12 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
was like,
it was. Yeah.
I remember that.
12 years, and we was in Sydney Harbour, Circular Quay. I was doing induction.
Will was one of our dancers.
Joined as the dance group that joined, and Gemma was the cruise director. So she was like
head of entertainment.
My boss's boss, I think that was right. So she was a few ranks higher than little old me. Yeah. But she come and introduced herself, and I was just like, hello.
Oh, babe.
Was it a love at first sight type scenario? Or did in those environments, does it? Because I can imagine that's quite.
People work and play hard.
Okay.
They work hard, they play hard. Crew Bar is a crazy place, or it was back in the day. We left in 2016. But
I mean, you definitely learn to work hard and play hard. You can't. There's no like having a hangover and phone sorry, I'm not coming into
You're just pushing
the
through
cruise
that.
director will come and knock on your door the next day and like, get your ass upstairs.
Yeah, there's nowhere to
Duties to
hide,
do.
is there?
No.
You have literally nowhere to hide unless you
No.
want to jump off the side of
Lifeboat,
it.
no.
Yeah, there's
But
no hiding.
I think that's where, I've always been a little bit of, I would say I'm a grafter.
Driven.
I think that's okay. Yeah, driven. That's the best way of putting it. But when you're at sea, whether it's a 4-month, most of my contracts in the end were 4 months because of my position, which was really lovely. But when you first joined, they were like 8-9 month contracts, and you work every single day. And some of the hours would be like 16, 18 hours. Like some of them are so long, and you just kind of get used to that. So that sort of maybe prepped us a little bit for the business that we work, live, sleep.
Yeah, we're used to sort of being just all-encompassing, all around us all the time. So I think being on cruise ships actually was quite good training, not knowing what was coming.
And it's quite, I guess it's, as an environment for a relationship to develop in, that's quite intense, isn't it, as well? Because you're around each other.
Yeah.
I guess there is no escape, so it can go well or it can go badly, and regardless, you're still in the same space and you're seeing each other most days. In this case, it went well, which is really nice.
Well, there's a lot of short-term relationships happen on
That's a
cruise
nice way.
ships.
That's a nice way of putting it, yeah.
Very short-term, and I don't know. I guess we're lucky. But the thing is, we met in Sydney, but we literally lived 10-15 minutes away from each other. Will was from Wickford in Essex and I was from Canvey.
The more we got chatting, the more we realised through our time how we just sort of followed each other around,
Yeah. So you met I was trying to do quick maths, if it was 12 years ago, 2013.
Yep.
You started Wilma's in 2016?
Yeah, that's fun.
So talk to me then. So you met and then Wilma's was formed. What happened in that time to get you from the ships,
Cruise ships
to starting how do you describe it? A bakery?
Yeah, so
And
at the
it's
time
so much more than that now,
yeah,
obviously.
so basically we were merrily working at ships, and I think even though we'd always said we said about coming off of ships, and we'd started to think about our long-term plan, and we thought we were going to start an entertainment agency for performers to go onto cruise ships, and that's what we wanted to do. That was like our long-term.
That's where your experience is.
So, yeah, absolutely.
It's a safe path in a way.
and-
Yeah.
Well, we also knew some contacts, didn't we? We knew the people that worked shoreside. We sort of had some good ideas that would have, at the time, fixed a few problems that we were experiencing. Eventually I stopped dancing and become sort of management, and I worked up to become Gemma's sort of second in the department. So
we were cruise
between us,
director
we
and deputy.
were managing the department, and we were just constantly frustrated at some of the shortcomings in some other areas of the department. It was like, oh my God, if we were to come on cruise ships, we could start this, we could do this, recruit this, we could fix this problem.
What were we going to call it?
Circle entertainment.
Oh, that's it.
For
Yeah.
a well-rounded performer.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, well we had it all.
Yeah.
We had it all down.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
it all down. So cringy. But yeah, that was going to be it. So
Oh, sorry, I got distracted. That was the question I was going to answer. Sorry. Basically, I fell ill. I started getting recurrent uveitis, which is an infection of your uvea. And I got some weird rashes, and I kept getting lots of ulcers. And one day, so with the uveitis, I kept having to take Maxidex, which is a steroid drop, and I kept having to go shoreside to see different eye specialists. I'd been all over Australia seeing these different specialists, because every time I'd get an infection, shoreside would go, okay, cool, you've got to go and see someone.
invariably we'd never be in the same port and it would flare up.
Exactly, which was quite frustrating. And then one day, one of the doctors, he said, well, this isn't just an eye problem we're treating, this is an autoimmune disease that you've got. And I was like, no. And it was the day of Australia Day, the 26th of January, and I was getting off the next day to go for another appointment, and the senior doctor on board said, I'm Gemma, I'm so sorry. And I just looked at her and I was like, can't medically disembark a cruise director. She went, no, I've spoken to LA, we're disembarking you. I was like, hang on a minute, I'll be back. So I skipped up and I was like, Captain, we have a problem. I called shoreside, and the director of entertainment shoreside was like, what, you're fine, look at you. And I was like, I know, look at me. And everyone was like, well, we can't just lose a cruise director. That is not how it works. So they said, can you give us like a week so we can find a replacement? We had a 3-day cruise coming up, and they said, okay, cool, we can get someone to come on to cover your position for 3 days. Look at you, you're fine, you'll be fine. So I got off in Auckland, and they'd sent me to this specialist hospital, and they're like, you're going to do urine samples all the time, all these different tests. I was like, okay, cool. So got off in Auckland, said goodbye to Will, like high five to the cruise director.
4 days time,
yeah, exactly. High five the cruise director who was coming on, did like a little shimmy down the gangway. And I was like, I'm fine,
This is so entertainment business, because I actually imagine you doing this.
You know, I was like, woohoo! Hoping that I was going to just get to go and stay in a hotel for a couple of days after the doctor was like, yeah, fine. But I got there, and he gave me a once over and looked at my bloods and was like, we need to get you medical clearance to fly you back to the UK. I was like, what? I'm fine. Sorry, hitting the microphone.
Okay.
I'm very expressive. I said, I'm fine. And they said, basically, you're not. Eventually, so then I literally went straight back to the ship, and I said to Will,
I was sitting in the office, turned around, I was like, in the nicest possible way, what the hell are you doing here?
I was like, no, I am actually being medically disembarked now. That's it.
Fly me home.
I'm going home. And Will said, oh, well, I'm coming with you, which obviously our company
weren't too happy about. But I was like, Gemma,
like your top two people.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was like, I can't not.
time.
Like, you know, we've been together at this point for a few years, and I was like, but when we get home, she might be running around. You know, we don't know what kind of, tests they're going to need to do, what kind of medication they might prescribe,
if any at all. We didn't really know the severity of it,
they might not need anything. But if Gemma's going, I'm going. And we've always said to them, we come as a package. So when placing us on ships, we said our rotations need to be the same. We need to be on the same ship, otherwise we're not going to come.
Yeah.
And we were dead serious about it. So I had to sort of call their bluff in a way and go.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, bye.
And that was it.
So we both came back.
I can imagine that is that's a crushing experience to go through when you're doing what you have set out to do from being a youngster, both of you.
And you're just sort of going along, as you said, quite merrily. You know, we're sort of there enjoying ourselves, working. I mean, like Australia Day is a crazy sort of period of time, at least for an Australian cruise company in Australia. It's, you know, one of their busiest sort of party times. And there we are, just, you know, going along and say, oh, by the way, you're going home in 4 days. What?
We earned really good money. We flew business class around the world.
The whole lifestyle was one that you were very happy.
It was amazing.
Living,
sometimes we would have different guests and celebrities that would come on, and it would be we would have to go and take them for dinner, and it was a really, really lovely life. And I don't think I ever really mourned the loss of that life. Occasionally, like doing my makeup in the car now on the way here, I was like, oh, life sucks.
Not because we're coming here, just because of the day we've had. Just to put it out there.
I don't
start a business. But yeah, it was. But then we got home, and literally we started.
We had 2 months at home, didn't we? We had 2 months at home where we were just sort of bumming around. We was going to the gym, waking up really late, spending time with friends, thinking we are going back to ships. And then when you got the medical diagnosis, we were under Bupa at the time, being fast tracked. And then all of a sudden we got the medical diagnosis, and the company went, oh, we don't want to touch you anymore. Bye.
Yeah, you're not
on your
back
own
now.
So that was it. And that was the end of the career. And we were like, wow, what do we do now? Which then, I guess, brings us into the next part where we started the business.
So talk to me about that then. And why the industry that you ended up moving into? You've gone from being in it's entertainment industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you're in, to then starting Wilma's.
So we were sitting down one day at breakfast, weren't we, whilst sort of bumming around, going to the gym, and we were sitting down at breakfast, went for
just using our savings.
Yeah,
right.
And we sort of said, well, what is there anything we can do? Gemma had always had a passion for baking. Whenever we come home from ships, jet lag is a thing, and Gemma would be up 3, 2.
Always just baking in the morning. Like I'd get up and then everyone would come down.
And you'd come down to the smell of fresh cake every morning. Like there'd be banana bread made, there'd be little Victoria sponges, there'd be all sorts of stuff. It was great when I was dancing because I had a good body, I was in good shape. But then when I stopped dancing, I wasn't quite as physical anymore.
Problematic.
I put on quite a lot of weight quite quickly because Jen was like, have some cake, have some of this, had some of this. And then we were sitting there, I was like, well, you know, if we're going to do something with this, like, do we try and find something to do in between contracts? Because, you know, we were away for 4 months.
We honestly still thought that we were going to go back.
Yeah, this is just before we got the diagnosis, I should add. But we were sitting there thinking, well, if we come up with this sort of idea that we were sort of brainstorming, we could have this work when we come home for 2 months at a time. Then we get to go back to Australia for 4 months. Then we can pick this back up for 2 months, and we can book jobs in with what we were proposing in our off time. And the idea was we was going to do sort of like a coffee trailer, and we're going to go to
Coffee and cake. We'll do festivals, foodie events.
we can book them up in advance. Then we can sort of know when we're going back to Australia, not cancel bookings, but stop the booking period, go back to Australia. Then when we're out there, email's a lovely thing. Send some emails off, book some things in,
Set
come back and
yourself
carry
up
on
for when you
working.
get back, yeah.
So we're like, that way we've got, we're still having
purpose.
income. Because that's the problem with these ships, isn't it? You go 4 months on, 2 months off. The 2 months is unpaid. There's nothing. You are living off of what you've saved on the ship. So we thought maybe we could come up with something that enables us to have some sort of income, save us living on our savings.
So you mentioned the trailer there as well. So
Called Cakey McCakeface.
Cakey McCakeface. I was looking at this when I was doing some research too. So you get back and you're diagnosed.
Yeah.
In the chronology, when does Cakey McCakeface end up on the
Probably
set?
a couple of weeks before, really, isn't it?
No. So we got back literally the beginning of February, and we got Cakey McCakeface in the May, and that one was a disaster. Well, it wasn't a disaster. So we said, we was like, are we going to do something? Like, are we going to do something with this? Maybe, like, what could we do? And I was like, oh well, glad you asked. I found this on Gumtree. And it was a pink trailer where I was like, well, festivals, yeah, okay, cool, right. I was like, okay, I'll book a viewing. So
Well, it's on the right, didn't it?
West End.
In the West End. We were like, it's not far, we're Essex, London's only down the road.
Yeah.
Happy days.
So I called the woman and I was like, hey, would love to come and view your trailer. Can we come? She was like, okay, cool. So we booked it the day after next. And that was it, booked in, the West End. That's all I knew. We went and bought a 4x4 so we could pull the trailer. So we clearly thought that we were definitely going to buy it.
You were committed at this point from the sound of it. Yeah.
And it was literally the day before. I then gave her a call. I was like, hey, sorry, didn't get your postcode. W1, what is it? And she's like, it's GA. I was like, GA? Where in London is that?
That's not a London postcode.
So then started typing it in. I was like, oh, holy, I'm in so much trouble. Glasgow.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so
it's a big commitment. At
Yeah,
this
so we then
stage,
headed up the M1 to Glasgow in a car we'd bought the day before, not knowing
Hoping it
anything
doesn't
about
break
it.
down.
Hoping it doesn't break down on us. It was a Shogun, a Mitsubishi Shogun. It was an absolute beast of a car.
I was going to say they're unstoppable from
Oh my God.
from the very little I know
I've never
about
had a
cars.
car before where I've had so many people at the forecourts in petrol stations go, mate, can I buy that car off
Yeah,
you?
just
I was
a
like-
nod.
I was like, what have we got? I didn't realise what we had. But anyway,
it was stolen in the end.
it did get stolen in the end, unfortunately. But it got us to Glasgow. It got us the trailer.
And back.
And
we
back
literally
in a
bought
day.
the trailer, knowing nothing about trailers. But they're not things you can't learn. And we kind of had that
As a
mentality.
bloke, you sort of go around it and you do the whole sort of once round, give the tyres a kick and go, solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
Great.
take it. So you didn't have a clue what we were looking at, and off we drove back down to Essex.
And then that was where it started. And we was like, well, how are we going to get work? I was like, I'll make some phone calls. So like literally sent a few emails. I was like, this is what we're doing. Obviously we hadn't done any events at that stage. And then people were like, sounds great. We're like, okay, lovely, book us in.
Wow. So I would assume at that point, this goes from baking as a hobby or baking as something that sounds like it was just a nice way for you to spend your time, wind down, get over the jet lag, to now, oh shit, I need to actually bake enough things.
Yeah, so
to go
that
and
was
sell.
quite
It
a
was like,
jump.
how do we figure out how much to bake? Where do we get the ingredients from? How do we transport these things? Like, these are all these things that now we're like, great, we've got the job. What do we do now?
So at first it was literally buying all of our ingredients from supermarkets, but just massive trolleys of them. Like, oh, this is fun, and people go, oh, hungry, yes, hungry, and it was only the more we bought, like we'd look into it and we'd find different contacts, and then people would recommend other companies, and we learned on the way. We made a lot of mistakes. Like some events, the first big event we did was Brownstock Festival, and that one, I think the pitch fee was a couple of grand, because we were just coffee and cake. Whereas for some people, they go in paying like 12 grand for a pitch at these sort of events. And it was the last year, I think, that they did it. They didn't let all the people that were going to the festival, they didn't let them in until late because there was a ride which was too close to another one. Health and safety had said no. So pretty much everyone came in at like 8 o'clock, all sunburned, all absolutely drunk because they'd just been sitting in their tents all day.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were gurning, and I was like, oh God, these people aren't going to want coffee and cake. Like, oh God.
I think within 45 minutes of opening, we had this cute little table and chairs, similar to the table and chairs we've got out the front of our Lee shop.
Yeah.
And within 45 minutes, someone had actually fallen off the chair and was fitting on the floor.
Yeah, and then one of the tables got stolen. I was like, oh no, this isn't ideal.
What are we doing? You know,
What
we've
an
got a van
experience.
out the back with tons of cake, and you know, we've got milk full coffee for days.
Yeah, refrigerated van, and we thought it was going to be like previous years. They'd been really successful, and they had lots of people that had like habitual coffee in the mornings and like
that's
a
how you
pastry.
know it's worthwhile you putting that money into it too,
Absolutely. So we looked at all of this data, and then we were like, okay, cool, let's make this leap, and we did it. And literally the next day, when we had a couple of people coming for coffee and everyone else was just literally gurning again and being sick up our trailer, I was like, this is a bad idea. And I went out the back. I was like, if there's a God, please help us right now. Just let's break even, like just let's break even. And I think we went home with £70 after doing like a week of work. Oh, £70 on top of breaking even. So we made 70 quid up.
Yeah.
But we were talking to all the other traders, and they were all literally thousands. They were going home thousands of pounds down, and they were like, that's probably our business done.
If that were us, that would have been the end of Wilma's as we know it. Like, we wouldn't have carried on. We wouldn't have had the money. That would have been it.
Sort of finished before you've even got going.
Yeah, because you pay the pitch fee, and then you have to invest so much like into stock and ingredients.
One thing we learned quite quickly with that scenario is that, again, the people that are tasked with selling the pitch fees are just salesmen, and they will sell you anything, you know, and they'll give you all the good numbers. Yeah, we've got 12,000 people coming. Well, that's 12,000 people over 3 days.
Right.
And we've got 12,000 people coming. How many people are camping? Because actually there's only like 500 people camping. So they're all, you know, so they aren't going to have many people there in the morning. Great. So you've got 12,000 people coming. What's your demographic? Male, female, old, young, you know, are they predominantly 15, 16, 17 year olds? All these questions we learn on the back of that. But at the time, you just go, they've got 12,000 people coming. Let's book up. We're silly not to.
You're wowed by numbers, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like when I say we are all wowed by numbers.
For sure.
And when you're
Absolutely.
starting a business, you can get super excited about that. But you learn very quickly to qualify.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I need to ask a few more questions here. And it sounds like you did that because you became more successful with Cakey McCakeface as you went along. I'm sure you got recognised, the brand got recognised. And
we were asked to attend so many events, and in the end we were then picking where we wanted to go. And we were like, you tell us where like you tell us why we should come to you, and we'll let you know if we can do it. And it got to the point where we did some really, really lovely festivals, and they were all family festivals. We did loads of foodie events, and people really wanted us. And then we were being like gifted a spot, which was awesome. And
we were really lucky to meet some of the people on the way, weren't we, as well? And they really looked after us as well, which was really nice.
that's great.
It got to the point where it was so successful that we then went and bought we bought a horse box, didn't we? And then we did a second. And then we did lots of Christmas events, and we just kept getting busier and busier, which again is such a lovely thing. And then we went, okay, cool, let's get bricks and mortar.
How then do you go from a trailer, a horse box, to then going bricks and mortar?
So whatever we made, we really, really cared about. Like, we're very meticulous for certain details. So like the coffee and the cakes, there's a science behind it. And I should have said before that I'd done lots of like different courses with baking and stuff. And
you'd hosted on the ships a lot of culinary demonstrations. You'd spoken to a lot of chefs, a lot of pastry chefs, a lot of cooks
like
of
celebrity
all sorts of
chefs and
levels
and bakers in Australia. And so I dealt with them, and like that was a real passion. So then I went and did different courses, and Will really took the coffee side of things really, really seriously. So we had a really good basis, and we were popular at the time, which was nice. And we said, okay, well, how about we set up something which isn't quite as hard work as it is, because doing lots of different festivals, you're literally packing down, packing up, setting up. Like we're traveling across the country.
It's quite labour intensive from the sound of it.
For sure. And it's also quite seasonal. There are a few months.
The other downside to it is it's very weather dependent. You know, you can have an event where a family day, in the summer we have like family fun days, and it's, last year we had X amount of 1,000 people turn up. The minute rain is on the horizon, that number will halve. And you think, well, that's
even more.
Yeah, sometimes more if the rain does actually come. Sometimes the event doesn't go on at all, and you think, well, you can't deal with that unpredictability. So we're like, we need to start trying to get something that's a bit more predictable. We can keep the trailers as like a side hustle, but we need to start looking for something that we can have as a base. Something that we can sort of put our stamp on and make our home.
Yeah.
So being the forward running people that we are, we started looking on Rightmove at different properties for rent. We found a couple. The first one that we found, it didn't go ahead. It fell out of bed. And then we found this one where our Leon C shop is, our first one. And it looked like it wasn't actually going to go ahead, wasn't it?
It was on and off for quite a while, just because the tenant that was in there at the time, he was umming and ahhing as to whether he was going to give that part up. It was 2 shops. Right. It made into one, and he wasn't sure if he was going to give a bit up. And, it's sort of to and fro for a while. And the landlord said, leave it with us and I'll get back to you. And
we thought it was well and truly gone, didn't we?
Yeah, we were just carrying on with the summer season, weren't we? Just thinking, look, when the summer season closes, we've got sort of a full diary. We can't really facilitate doing that as well as all of this. So, what was meant to be is meant to be. And then I think towards the end of the summer season, he gave you a ring, didn't he? And said,
our landlord. And the thing is, I was really lucky to pick up the phone because I'm awful with my phone. It's usually in a handbag. I'm really, really bad. That is one thing I suffer with was my phone. And I picked it up. I was like, hello. And he said, oh, it's Graham, the landlord. Do you want the shop? It can be yours. And I was like,
yes,
we'll take it. But we'd had like a little sad spell where we were like, oh, it's never going to happen. Even though we were looking at other shops, but we thought that one had fallen through, and it just seemed that it was meant to be.
Yeah,
and
a bit of serendipity there.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And we took on the lease, and you did all the work kitting it out. Our friends came and helped.
No, we didn't have big funds, did we? Like we only had what we'd earned in the summer, and it's not phenomenal amounts of money. We had some, but it wasn't a lot. So, we took the coffee machine out the trailer and put that in the shop because we couldn't afford a coffee machine. We did a lot of the work ourselves. We had a glass partition wall in the shop initially, didn't we, that you found online from the Gherkin.
Yeah.
You travelled all the way to Gherkin in London to go and pick it up.
I really wanted... again, with the crazy ideas, I really wanted a glass wall for our kitchen so that people could see their birthday cake being made, or if they're having a wedding cake, like the couple can come in and watch their wedding cake being made.
Because the couple's going to have time the day before their wedding to look at us making a cake.
Okay. We hadn't got married at that stage.
The idea was, we were like, yeah, it's a lovely idea, We hadn't sort of figured out all the finer details.
Yeah, without knowing the chronology of how close to the wedding the cake would have to be made, I was sat there thinking, that'd be pretty cool, but I understand what you're saying.
But literally, it's the day before the wedding. Yeah. We don't freeze anything. Nothing's like it's all
as fresh as it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So that idea soon went out the window. And then once we had this window and we had this tiny little kitchen, which I don't know how we worked in, it was so small. We then found actually what was a lovely idea actually came at the detriment to our time, because people would be like,
right,
how do you do this? Can you do that again? I'm like, oh no, this is actually a cake.
It's not a cooking. It's not a baking class for you.
And that then did slow us down.
To know sort of customers become friends, and then as they come in, they sort of want to say hello and talk to you. So then often you get they can see you working, so they can see you. They can't hide. So then you'd often sort of end up stop what you're doing, go around and have a little chat. And well, if that happens 3 or 4 times a day, and it happens for 10 minutes, you've lost an hour a day just chatting to people.
Yeah,
and that's without any sort of.
Our productivity was low. Yeah, as soon as a customer was thrown in, a lot of the time we wouldn't leave until like midnight, 1 o'clock, and then the next morning would be in at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. They'd be crazy long days. But I mean, some of it we brought on ourselves because, again, we like to chat. So it'd be like someone coming like, oh, hey, how you doing? We haven't seen you for a week. Chat. And Gem's like, we've really got to get back to this cake.
When we first started, pricing was a really bad thing, and I was always really, really scared to price things, and still I'm really bad at quoting now. Ellie will take care of pricing or quoting for me, because I'll be like, that does sound quite expensive, and she's like, do you realize how much the ingredients are? I'm like, I know. So I really underquoted for all of our cakes when we first started, and then word spread that we made cakes that tasted awesome or dirt cheap. And then before I knew it, I was doing like 25 cakes on my own on a day, and then it it'd be
was a lot.
manic. Yeah, it was a lot.
Was it still just you two at this stage?
Yeah, we got a Saturday girl, and our first proper employee. She worked locally, and she was a regular in the shop. She loved our products, which was great. And she'd just been made redundant, she was really lovely. And we
still see her to this day.
Yeah,
don't
we still do see her to this day.
Whenever we do, we always like stop and say hello. Like, she's lovely girl, lovely girl.
And I'm so glad that we hired her. But at first, when we hired her, we were like, what happens if we take her on and we then can't pay her wages? Like, what happens? And when we took on the shop as well, we took on the lease, and we both discussed what happens if we then can't pay the lease. Then what happens? Like, I don't want to lose our house. We need to make our mortgage repayments. There's obviously quite a lot of risk involved. And Will was like, okay, well, I don't know, I'll be a busman. Like, whatever it is. And we weighed up Catherine's wages at the time, and then we went, oh, okay, right, okay, well, if I need to get a part-time job in the evenings at a bar to be able to afford to pay Catherine to help us in the day so that we can then be more productive, we can do it. And thankfully it never came to that. But taking on our first staff member was so scary, knowing that we were paying for her living as well as our own. And like,
speaking from experience, I've got one other employee in my business, and I've only hired him a year ago.
Yeah.
So I've been running the business for 5.5 years. It took me a long time to get comfortable thinking about bringing someone else in, but it's a huge consideration for me.
Really
when I was, you don't want to do something that's going to put yourself in a difficult position, but also once you've hired someone, you take on the responsibility for them to pay for their mortgage and their bills and their
you got to
family.
afford
That's
their
a huge
livelihoods.
commitment.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I think people underestimate that when they see people running companies, and you're taking the stress of operations, but also other people's responsibilities.
and now we've got 25 staff. So like, it's now,
that's crazy. Could you ever imagine having 25 staff when you started out?
Not in a million years.
Like,
Not in a
even
million
now,
years.
the fact, like, sometimes we'll walk into one of our shops, and like, if we walk into Lee, it's like nostalgic. It's like, oh, this is where it all started. Or we'll walk into Rayleigh and it will be really rammed, or in Southend, and you're just like, this is ours. Like, it's so crazy to think.
It started off in our kitchen in our flat in Langdon with just you and I cooking out of our little oven, and then we bought like a commercial oven that lived in the corner of our living room, and we
We
would
had a
bake
big
on
open
that.
plan living room,
Yeah, and we had this big old-
kitchen,
with a
and then
big
we had
oven,
like a
commercial oven
commercial
sitting in
kitchen. So we didn't really have friends over, and we couldn't have pets. We couldn't have anything. Like, we would. Now we have pets, which is lovely.
I did a bit of digging
Go on.
because you have some very interesting cats. If
We
they're
do.
still around,
Yeah,
just
they're still around.
Could you tell us about your cats, please? Because
Oh,
they are quite
yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
They're naked cats, Ed and Winnie.
Sphinx,
Yeah. So Ed is the
which
pink
are the
guy.
ones, if you're struggling to picture them, the ones that feature in Friends.
Is it?
Or Mr. Bigglesworth.
Or Mr. Bigglesworth in Austin
Yeah.
Powers, yeah.
Yeah.
But specifically, a lot of people always refer to the one that, is it Rachel has and holds,
Yeah,
or
and
Phoebe
it's
has?
really-
And
It keeps scratching.
Yeah.
yeah, so they've
Yeah.
kind of got a bad rap, but it couldn't be further from the truth.
I think they're notoriously hard to love.
Yeah.
I'm
some would
saying
say.
this to provoke a reaction.
They're like-
Some would
I
say.
don't mind them. I'm not a
Okay,
cat
yeah.
person,
Right.
but I did see some of the pictures that you shared online, and you've made them look very cute. There's a collection of jumpers and various bits of knitwear.
They're more like dogs than they are cats. Like, they're just, they would come and meet us at the door.
The reason we
like,
got Ed originally was because all of a sudden, where we didn't have, the kitchen at home, and actually the shop was sort of becoming a self-sustaining entity, we're like, wow, we can afford a pet now. Yay, life goals.
we're responsible enough.
Yeah, we're responsible enough. So it was like, cool. So Gem was sitting on her phone. She's like, I've been looking at pets. And I was like, no, let's not do it yet. She's like, no. So I found this cat. They're like dogs, but they're
But
cats.
hairless.
Yeah,
But they've got their phone. Showed me pictures. I was like, oh
week.
my God. I'd never seen one before. I was like, wow. Tell a lie.
You had seen one because when we opened Wilma's in Lee, we had a pink secondhand fridge that I'd found on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, one of those. And when we went to pick up the fridge, she had Sphinx cats.
3 of them.
And I was like, oh my God, I love these.
I'd never seen them before. And I didn't know how to act. I was like, do I stroke them?
I would be
or-
a little bit on edge, and I've never met your cats. I'm sure they're really lovely, but just seeing a hairless cat would freak me out.
I mean, we had at one point when we was in our flat, we had to move out. We had some building works done because some things went wrong, and the builder come round to look at giving us a quote for ripping up the floor. and Ed was on my shoulder because they love to sit up high.
They're like parrots.
And he's just sitting there on his shoulder, and he walked in and he looked at it. He literally screamed in my face, "What is that?" I turned around and run out. I was like, that's a bit of a strong reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have done that
big
much.
burly builder, and he literally run out the door. I was like, mate, he's a cat, and he's a cat, like, chill out.
But I think everyone's like, oh, I'm not so sure. And then they're like Velcro. So they just want to be on you, and they love a beard. They want to rub up against it.
They love beards.
So all of our friends, even friends that aren't pet people, are like, oh, actually,
They're kind of cute.
We are proud to be supported by friends of the show and previous guests, the local merchants. They stock some of the finest ready-to-wear brands in the world and now offer a made-to-measure service that, speaking from personal experience, will leave you feeling like a proper celebrity. Sam and Ed are known for phenomenal customer service, and they're now crafting tailored pieces so good you'll start inventing reasons to wear them. Book your appointment online or in store, and their beautifully designed space becomes your private dressing room, somewhere you can collaborate with the best in the business to create something for any occasion. Their knowledge of tailoring, materials, and how a suit should actually look and feel is second to none. First piece or something special, you'll be in expert hands. The customization options next level. Cut, lining, lapels, buttons, buttonholes, vents. What even are vents? The whole experience first class. And for a limited time, JobsWorth listeners get 10% off purchases over £200 in store or online with the code JW10, including made to measure. So if your wardrobe's due an upgrade, now's the time. Visit thelocalmerchants.co.uk for more information. T's and C's apply. I'm going to ask now, because we're going to go, I will talk to you about you scaling. Mm-hmm. You've already mentioned 25 employees, which is mad. Has there ever been one of you that's been more into it from a business perspective than the other? Have you always been on the same page, or does it take one of you?
Fully done each.
There's a bit of a pendulum going on.
Yeah, for sure.
What was it? What way around was it when we were opening Lee?
Yeah, when we were opening, for the whole time.
I was really pessimistic about it when I was like, I'm not sure if this is the right idea. Hence the reason I was looking into jobs that I could do to afford the lease, at least for the first year until we could give notice to leave so we didn't have to lose our house. I was like, I don't know if it's the right thing. I really don't feel comfortable with this. I don't know if it's going to work. And Gemma was like, no, it's going to be great. And look what we've done with the trailers, and we're going to do the same. And she was really upbeat. And then it was
the opening week, wasn't it?
Yeah, the week we got to the opening. It was everything was coming together. Before. We had the flowers on the ceiling. We had the glass in the wall. I think we were like finalising the connections for like the coffee machine and giving things a coat of paint.
And I think the enormity then hit
this is real.
Yeah, and I would just.
And then we swapped.
What happens if nobody comes? Like, what happens? And we was like, don't say that. Look how far we've come. Now people have to come. I was like, yeah, but if they don't, we're fucked. And he was like, no, they will. And then
we had a blazing row.
Yeah, we had a massive row. I had my first ever panic attack, which was like crazy. But do you remember really scary.
We had that row, and this is really, really weird. We had the row. We were driving down. Is it Marine Parade? As you're driving out of Lee,
yeah.
And as we were driving down, you got the estuary on the left-hand side. And I kid you not, our old ship that we met on was sailing down the estuary.
No,
it gives me shivers thinking about it.
Yeah.
I swear, we were on a ship called the Pacific Pearl. It was a P&O Australia ship. It was an older ship, and they were looking to increase their fleet size, but they had to get rid of some of the dead wood, and the Pacific Pearl was made way for some of the newer ships. So they sold it to a company that operated out of Grays, of all places.
We didn't know this.
Didn't know this at the time. We didn't know it. And we're driving down having this big row, and we both just went,
that's the Pearl.
That's the Pearls. And it was almost, I don't know, it felt like...
Did it stop you rowing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least momentarily.
And it felt like it was like our old life meeting our new life, and it sounds
kind of almost felt like
a bit of a nod. I get that, a bit of a nod, like, go on, you're doing the right thing. Yeah.
It really did. Like, I'm not like hugely into that sort of thing, but it really did. And it just, even now, it still gives me shivers, like picturing us driving down, having this blazing row and seeing our old ship.
That is crazy, though.
We don't really argue. The only time we ever really argue is about work. The business. Yeah, it's always about work. Like, we're both so passionate about it.
Often I'm right and she's wrong, so we have to argue.
We're going to start that now, Will. Okay.
And then we had another fight. I think in the early days, everyone just thought that you were doing it just to support my baking dream, because I'd baked all the cakes for everyone. But it wasn't like that. And it took a while for even like family and friends to then actually go, oh no, this is definitely both of them, as opposed to we'll just support
from day
you.
one, I mean, like the baking is an area that you've always taken care of. But then I've always had my areas I've taken care of, and it's always been like from day one, I'll sort some of the logistical stuff out. I'll figure out how we're going to transport the stuff. I'll figure out how we're going to do the renovations. Jem will design it and I'll make it. Jem will bake it and I'll be flitting around in the background annoying her while she's trying to decorate it or something. I don't know.
It's kind of like what you were saying just before we started filming about the podcast, like how Tom does a lot of the behind the scenes. And
don't tell everyone.
Sorry. Tom does a lot of the stuff. And you're the face, right? Like I think because a lot of the time I'm on this social media, like doing like a live in a hairnet looking awful, that I guess sometimes I'm the face.
I mean, we've been on holiday. Last year was it last year? The year
before. We were in Rhodes.
And it was our second day. We were in the buffet and somebody walked by Gemma and went, oh my God, you're Gemma from Wilma's. Kid you not.
Like,
really?
And I was sitting at the table, didn't realise. She didn't saying, someone recognises from the shop.
And I was like,
no way.
Did I have a good amount of food on my plate? Did I look too greedy? Was it not? No. I was like, okay, no. And yeah, it was odd. And then we started like getting recognised around just randomly. And then people would come from like drive for hours to say, oh, we've come to Wilma's. Like literally we've driven from Liverpool to come.
How cool is that though? That's such, like, knowing that you've created a brand and a product that people are willing to do that for must be amazing.
It's crazy.
It's mind-blowing. It's humbling. It's amazing. There's so many other words that I can't describe. Like, there's so many days that you're having like a bad day and something nice will happen. Like we said to Gemma on the way here, was like, is there anything we're not going to discuss or anything we're going to talk about? Like, what's the worst and best thing? We're sort of questioning each other, not knowing what we're going to get questioned on. It was like, what's the worst bit about the job? And we're like, well, I don't know if that's one of your questions. Sorry if it is. Getting there.
You've ruined it.
Wait a minute.
Damn it. But it's like, but there's no like one singular worst thing. There's no one bad thing more than the other. Like, customers, they can be our best thing. They can be the worst thing. We've had some really difficult customers this year. But just the other day, I said to Gemma, like, we had a lady send an email on Instagram who's been with us since the early days of Lee. And she sent a really lovely message saying how the team were amazing. It was lovely to see Gemma in the shop. Gemma sort of managed to make a point of...
I quickly spoke to her and her daughter, and I gave them a wave, even though I was like in the middle of like 5 different things. And I was like, lovely to see you. And then skipped off, and she just said, oh, it was so lovely that you remembered us from the early days. I think I said, thank you for coming to see us in Southend. And she said, it's so lovely. And your team really look after people to the attention of detail that you guys used to. And so
that's really important, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. That making the team see that a customer is not just a transaction. They can go to Costa, they can go to Starbucks if they just want a transaction. But we've never wanted to be purely transactional. We've really wanted to make something that is great quality, that tastes great, looks great, but it isn't just... It's about the whole experience, like making someone's day. Like when we first opened, like we'd say to people, oh, how are you? And people go, sorry? What? You're like,
how are you?
How are you?
It's not a very British thing to experience, is it, when you walk into shops? And now I feel like there's a lot more places, and I use Lee as an example, but a lot more places now, and it still takes me back. Because you're so in your zone, you're so in your little world, and then someone drags you out of it by asking you a question. And actually, it's a really lovely thing to feel like someone's genuinely, I think it's being genuinely interested in the answer.
Yeah.
That's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
you definitely got different ways of asking it. Like, oh, all right. If you break that down, are you all right? That's not someone asking, are you okay? That's just our way of saying hello, isn't it? But to say hello, how are you today?
Yeah.
And really care about how
that's
somebody
a genuine
is.
question to someone, and
how's your day?
It's interesting watching people from the other side of it, and they have their headphones in, or they'll be texting a friend and like, sorry, what was that? How are you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually, no, I'm all right.
But we once had a customer who we did their wedding cake actually, and she said, "Oh, my partner, he doesn't like coming in here so much." I'm like, "Oh God, why?" And she said, "Oh, he's really really shy. He doesn't like knowing, like explaining."
Like talking.
And then I was like, "Oh God, now I'm too nice. Okay, I've got to tone this down, guys."
How do we strike the balance?
Yeah,
but that speaks to the
people.
community that you've built around the brand too. you and the culture of the company that you've built. Because again, everyone that you hire, from your first hire, I can't remember her name, I'm so sorry, Catherine, as a Saturday girl coming into the business to 25 employees, you need them to, you don't want clones of you, but you want them to toe the line of the brand and what you've built and how you treat people. I want to ask, and I feel like this is a really good time to ask this question. You're a couple, and you work together day in, day out. How do you get the balance right?
Oh, we've never mastered that one.
It sounds like you were conditioned before because you met in a work environment.
We've always had it. I think it's, for us, it's just the norm. Like like I said, we've been in such a pressure cooker environment from the word go, being on cruise ships, working every single day for whatever period of time it is, whether that's 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Always being on call, always being on shift, always having to answer to someone, always, and I think that's just been, like you said, good conditioning, good training. It just becomes normal.
We always try not to take work home, but it is inevitable. Occasionally there are days where we walk home from work and we'll have a rant on the way home and we're like, and then we'll open the door and then we'll go, right, let's leave it here. It's done now.
Doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't. Literally, we'll be laying in bed going, oh my God. And
because boundaries are important, aren't they, between work and life? And I think it's easier when, my experience, I've never run a business with a partner, but I would imagine it's easier to have those boundaries where you are doing separate endeavours and you are not sharing that experience together. But it's I'm saying this from a position of curiosity, knowing how couples like yourself, do it really successfully. There has to be a way to introduce those boundaries, but I guess it always permeates that, doesn't it? It permeates your life in so many different
It does. Like
facets.
Wilma's is our life. We don't have kids. We literally, the business is our baby. And
along with our two velvet babies and furry baby.
Yeah, exactly. They're our world. But literally Wilma's does take up, like, we live and breathe it. All of our friends know that the business is kind of our life. That's really, really sad, isn't it? Like,
I don't think it is sad. I don't think it's sad. It's in a world where we have so much advice always thrown at us about getting the balance right between work and life. I feel like if it works for you, then why not embrace that? If you are in a place where you can happily say, yeah, the business is my life. Or a massive part of it, the main part of it, the primary part of it, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think anyone sits there judging you for it. I think that's a great thing as long as you're happy with that being the case.
Like we are happy.
I think fundamentally, I think there's got to be, as much as we don't always admit it to ourselves, and there are days where we passionately hate what we do. Because
there are those days,
but
honestly.
I think fundamentally there is a whole lot of love for what we do, because we wouldn't have got this far. We wouldn't have sort of been able to make the products that we do without the passion, which ultimately comes from a place of care and love for what we do. So to then take that home, it's, as much as we try and leave it at the door, it still does come home with you, because it is our life. It's what
we care. Like, it really, everything we do, we really care. And I feel like we put everything we can into the items we create. Like, and therefore, if not everything's perfect, I know we both take it really personally.
Well, that's why you've been able to scale in the way that you have, isn't it? You've got 3 shops. You've grown from a trailer, respectfully, a trailer at festivals, to now 3 premises in really prime locations in our part of Essex. And that's incredible. 25 employees in the time that you've been operating too.
Yeah, like it is cool. I would say
it's really cool, Gemma. It's really cool. Like, sitting out as an outsider, it's amazing.
I don't think, in all honesty, we give ourselves enough time and credit to sort of sit back and, we get little snippets of it. I said to Gem a few weeks ago, I was walking home, and we were in the shop. I was working in the shop with some of the guys, and I was on the coffee machine, and I heard a girl on the phone to her friend. She's like, "Yeah, I've just popped into town for a Wilma's." That
How
expression
cool is that?
blows my mind.
Like every time we hear it, like you'll be walking through
Honestly,
Lee
it
and
doesn't
people are
get
like,
old.
"Oh, get in a
Wilma's.
Wilma's,
And
a
I mean,
Wilma's." It's like,
Yeah, you hear that, and that to this day still blows my mind that people refer to us as doing a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just popping into town for a coffee. I'm just going to pop into town and grab some cakes. I'm popping into town for a Wilma's.
Yeah.
And that to me is just like, wow.
You're a name now that's synonymous with a thing. And
Yeah,
that's
and that
crazy.
honestly is, again, humbling, amazing, all of the above. But
whenever people tag like, "Oh, going to a friend's with a Wilma's," like it's such a lovely feeling. And every time someone does tag, it gives me tingles inside. And I might not reply because I've got distracted by something, but no, like
But it resonates in it, and it
Yeah.
lands.
it never doesn't not like that. That to me is like the idea that started off in our kitchen. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
And do you know what? This is part of the reason I started the podcast, to have conversations with people and hopefully give you a point in a week, a month, 2 years time. You can listen back and reflect on this and think, yeah, actually we have achieved something bloody huge, and you should be really proud of it. And yeah, cool is a word you can use to describe it, but it's probably a bit more than that too. It's
it
it's
possibly
awesome.
is. I think the reason I'm like, oh yeah, cool, we've done a thing. Yeah, we've achieved that. Lovely. What's our next task? It always doing what we're doing now. When it was just Will and I, it was kind of easy because we were just accountable. It was ours. Every mistake we can own. Everything that goes great, yeah, we did that, awesome. Whereas now we've got to put our trust into other people making it is what it is, and it's kind of the business has snowballed, and it's happened quite quickly, sustainably, but sometimes because it has snowballed, and like the costs of running a business, for example, then our kitchen, we can actually still facilitate more than what we can. So what we're doing, sorry. So we're still looking for different ways to do that, whether it's going to be another shop or whether it's going to be different wholesalers. So there comes this point where, because it's now not just us, we do constantly have to look forward at what we need to achieve next, or what do we now need to do, what's the next target. But then because you're so focused on hitting those targets that you don't then always stop and go, that was really cool.
Give yourself the proverbial pat on the back. We're approaching the end now, but I did want to ask, have you got an idea of what enough looks like for you? And are you aligned on that? Because we're talking about scale, we're talking about the next thing, but when do you get to a point you go, okay, yeah, I'm happy with that?
We've both eventually, I don't know how we would do it.
Okay.
World domination.
Yeah, aim big. This is it.
I guess the idea would be eventually to be able to sell the business. There are other companies that have started in the way that we have, and they've gone on to sell their business. And I guess that would be really hard to hand over. And I listen to lots of different podcasts of people when they've sold their business and then they're like, I've just lost my identity.
Well, you've just described a few minutes ago the business as your baby. And that's a big step to see that go and
give it up for adoption.
To see that all of that. Yeah, you've built something from the ground up, and to see that go. But I'm just wondering when do you get to a point where all of this drive and this energy do you get to a stage where you say, okay, we've done it. We've
really
done
bloody tired, I tell you.
I don't know, because I think it all changes from one day to the next, isn't it? You have, someone over in America deciding he's going to do all these weird things, and it makes you think, what we're doing this for? Because, that could impact this, and that has a knock-on effect to that, and you just think, well, it's getting too difficult. And then there's other days you kind of wake up with like a spring in your step, and you think, come on, we've got at least 2 more shops, 3 more shops. We want to get 10 more wholesalers. We want to increase our website, and you think, yeah, we can do all these things. And then again, the government will throw something out there and be like, oh, curveball, here's a new policy for you. Or
someone will call in sick when somebody else has called in sick, and then you're splitting yourself in half.
And you just think, I don't know how you can manage anymore. And you think, now's enough. And then, as I said, tomorrow might be a new day. You wake up and go, I've definitely got it in me to be able
There's
to.
something in your head that sparks off an idea, and that's the
Yeah.
genesis for something else to happen.
Yeah.
We bounce off each other a lot, and we're really lucky now to have a team
We've got a good, close like management team that we can also sort of throw ideas off of, and we're sort of all quite aligned in what we're trying to push for at the minute.
And there will be days where somebody's, I don't know, they're sort of like behind, and then we sort of pull them forward, or they'll pull us forward, and they're like, "Come on, we're doing this," and that is really helpful that we've got that team now, because originally it just used to be just Will and I, and that was really hard when something would go wrong and we would just literally be eating ourselves inside. And now we see that happening to our managers, and we're like, no, don't let this eat you. Yeah. Like, let's brush ourselves down.
Lived experience is a big thing, isn't it? Been there, done that. Let me tell you that it doesn't feel like this for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in regards to what's enough, right now I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Do you know the sense I'm getting is just momentum off you two? Like, it keeps building, and I mean that in a really positive way. You could just get the sense of this energy that's still. I don't mean a spiritual way. I just mean the way you're talking about it. There's so much energy emanating from both of you that you just momentum just keeps going.
Absolutely. I think there is a momentum there, and we don't want to stop yet. But we won't ever push forward just for the sake of expanding, because that is so stupid. Like, we want whatever, if we get another shop, then we want to know that we can keep the quality, that nothing is going to drop. Like, it has to remain excellent. Otherwise, it's our names above the door. I don't want people to associate.
Push for the sake of pushing to compromise anything. As I said, our biggest thing has always been and always will be the quality of the products we're producing. We'll never cut a corner. We'll never go and use inferior products. We'll never start freezing things just so we can produce more on a given day. It's always going to be fresh. If we can't do what we're doing now in the way we do it, I'm not interested in it.
Right.
So it will always be as good a quality as what we are able to produce. And then in regards to things like, the shops, and I don't know, it's got to be right. Every single point along this journey, the trailer, it just sort of fell on our phone. Jen was throwing it and it happened to appear
in Glasgow.
It looked like in Glasgow, but like the Lee shop, it looked like it wasn't going to happen, and then it happened. The same thing happened with our Rayleigh shop.
No, and that happened with our Southend, because
we looked at it, we inquired about it. We got the keys for it in August last year. We inquired to it about November the year before, and we rang up the estate agent and said, no, it's already gone. Cool. It was like, that's gone. It was like, shame, because it looks like it's kitted out amazing from a kitchen point of view. Wenzel's were the previous tenants. They spent a small fortune.
They spent more money than we ever could.
Like they've done it to such a great spec.
Transforming the building because it was in a really bad way.
And then they said, no, it's gone. It was like, okay, that's a shame. That would have been a really good potential. And then I think 2 months later, they rang up and said, it's all falling out of bed. It's going back on the market. Would you like to come and look at it? And we was like, yes.
So it feels like the stars aligned, doesn't it?
But things like that always seem to just happen. We've never pushed it. We've never constantly badgered anyone for the leases, for the things to happen. So whatever it is that does happen next, whether that be a shop, whether that be a wholesaler, it will be because it just naturally happens and goes that way. I mean, obviously we've got to be behind it to look for it, but I'm never going to start chasing really.
You're not forcing it.
No. So if we put an offer in on a shop and and someone says, yep, we'll take it, then we'll go with it until it doesn't. But as I said, always with the back of our minds of the quality comes first.
We've got in our head, like, we've got some, like, on our business future plan, like, there are a few different places that we've thought that they would be nice to expand to. But if it doesn't work, then we're okay with where we are. But if it does, then
I would imagine as well there's other ways to achieve things in your line of work other than expanding into different locations, geographies, or different shops. You've got the whole R&D of what you're creating as well, haven't you? Like, there's so much versatility in your product that you get a kick out of that, I would assume, and still do the creative side of that.
I really love that side of the creativity. But then you're creative as well, like, you love the photography. Like, there are so many different, the business, there are just so many different elements, that there are so many different routes that we can go down. And even if we didn't get another shop, our website is a great way of.
Well, again, I mean, there are companies online that do wholesale of what we do. And they just do that. You know, they work on a website out
Just
of the
do
kitchen.
postal brownies.
And they just do, and you think, well, that's an entire avenue and a business in itself. So there's that avenue. You know, we don't need more shops. We could just go with that.
I think maybe we've got too many avenues at the moment. We need to shut down
basically.
some of these avenues. We're like, no.
But, you know, we're not, it's not like we're looking into all of them. It's, you know, it's not like we're trying to spread ourselves too thin. It's just, they are all the different avenues. They're all the things that are in front of us. And it's just, whatever happens will happen.
I'm going to ask you now for some advice, not personal advice. But I'm going to ask you.
Don't start a business.
Well, funnily enough, my question is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a business?
Don't start a business.
Well, I don't think you've done a very good job of selling that, to be honest, to not start a business. I think people that would have listened or watched this now might be inspired, you know. So it's okay.
Well, one of the podcasts that you were listening to earlier on was George,
Yes.
Roll Boys.
Yeah.
And we know George from locally, and I think it was last year. Oh no, it was the year before. The van had just been written off.
Yeah.
Our pink van had just been written off. And I walked into Colt Coffee and George was sitting there. He's like, "You're right, how's the business going?" And I was like, "George, do not start your own business." And he was like, "Well, I think I'm going to." I was like, "Don't do it, George. Don't do it. Whatever you do, just don't do it." And he was like, "Okay." And then I was like, I skipped out the coffee shop going, "Don't do it, George. Don't do it." And that was it. He did it, and he's doing amazingly.
So was that your advice to George?
To George, don't
do it.
Do it.
And he just went the complete opposite
like,
way, and
he was like, "Thank you."
But yeah, if you could give me something to, you know, say I came to you and say I wanted to start a business.
I just think whatever it is you're going to do, you need to really consider all options. Make sure you've got all avenues covered, because there'll be something you've missed. And just make sure you love what you do, because you need to make sure there's a passion there. If you don't love what you do, you don't have a passion for it in any degree, you're going to hate it quick. You're going to hate it real quick. And then that's not going to get you out of bed in the morning, because like even today, I personally didn't have a lot on today. Gemma had a hell of a lot on today. But there is when you haven't got a lot on to do, there's no one behind me to go, "Come on." You know, there's no manager behind you going, you've got to be self-motivated to get on with them things. So if you hate what you do, you don't enjoy it, you aren't going to have that motivation to get on and actually tick those tasks off, because they still need doing. Because if you don't do them, who's going to do it? Yeah.
You are accountable, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you have to be accountable.
You know, and there's jobs
yourself.
today that I've done. The reason why I wasn't busy is because I've really procrastinated in doing, because they're just the jobs that I don't like doing, VAT mainly. But sitting there trawling through it, you know, and if you don't enjoy what you do, you're going to find it really hard. So make sure that whatever it is you do, you've got some sort of passion for it. It's not just, I'm going to do that because they're doing that.
Got you.
Or just for the money, because it sounds, obviously you're in business, you do need to make money, but if you're doing it just for the money, then I don't think that's the right reason. You're
longer term, maybe you're not going to have the longevity there. Yeah.
Okay. Especially if you're doing food and drink, because there's really not crazy amounts.
You don't see that many rich bakers.
You need to love it. You need to love it.
You really love it.
I think people, and a lot of our employees would probably, not all, but a lot of them would probably think that we eat caviar for starters and drive around in very nice cars and walk the red carpets, and it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
You know, it's not to say we're poor, but it's certainly, this isn't a rich career to be in.
What you're saying, you've got to love it. Otherwise, you're not in it solely for the money. As you say, you've got to love it. Don't get it for the money. And that seems to be a nice way of describing the situation. Yeah,
for sure. As I said, like, you know, we live, we survive. But a lot of our friends are, if you're looking at it on paper, far wealthier than we are. You know, there's definitely better career choice I think you could make than the food and drink specifically.
He's given us a lot of purpose.
No, it has, but then again, that comes from, you know,
our
that love, that
passion.
career, that passion and drive you've got for it. That gives you purpose, doesn't it? That gives you the purpose to get up out of bed in the morning because you enjoy what you do. Again,
make sure you love it, because there will be days where you definitely don't love it, and there has to be, like in a relationship, there are days where you have to fight for it, right? With the business, there are days, months, maybe even years where you really have to fight,
dig in deep,
and really have to
That's
is
the
power
reality
group.
of it, isn't it? I think at the end of the day.
It's not all
Yeah.
sunshine and rainbows.
No.
And people really think it is. It's so much hard work.
Okay.
Like we live, sleep, breathe it. It's all right.
It sounds like it.
We do get to eat it as well. That's quite nice.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is.
we
Yeah, I was
do.
going to say there are worse industries to be in for that. So we are going to play Mr. and Mrs. The first time we've done this on the podcast as well.
We used to play this on the ship.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope this doesn't disappoint, Mr. and
Okay.
Mrs. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and you're gonna have to hold up the corresponding card to
Can I
who.
just say you really should have had a sequin jacket for this
Oh,
moment.
do you know what? We can edit that in.
Tom?
Okay, we're going to start. Right, so Mr. and Mrs., who's more likely to burn a batch of something? Oh, okay. So Will, we have to say the answer. I'm going to say the answer as well.
okay,
because
cool. Yeah,
for anyone
okay,
listening,
perfect,
that was
yeah.
Will. Who's the better barista? Will.
Yeah. Very good.
Who gets more excited about a new cake flavour? Okay. Who's more organised?
Oh, it depends.
No, it's
Oh, I like the ones where it's different. Oh, you've both gone with Will as
yeah,
well. Okay.
so like Will is...
There's no caveats, Gemma,
Okay,
sorry.
sorry.
Go on, please, go on. What was the Will is...
Will,
awesome.
Will does a lot of the serious side of the business, and I
Okay.
just sort of like flance around and just
Okay, so it's
throw
Will.
flavours
You're
together.
right.
Yeah,
You're right, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Who's the messier baker? Oh.
Did you say me?
Okay, yeah.
Shut up.
Will said Gemma said
I
Will.
am very tidy, I have you know.
Who's better with customers? Okay, yeah, both gone
Yeah,
with Gemma on that one.
definitely,
Okay.
100%.
Who's more likely to come up with a new idea? Doesn't have to be cake or bake related. No, you can't change your mind. Sorry, Gemma, you got to lock that in.
Okay, sorry, lock that in.
Oh, both. Okay. I don't know if that's against the rules, but
Is
that's
it?
all right. Yeah, we'll let you off. It's fine.
No sparkly jacket.
No,
sorry.
no slightly
We
jacket.
do like we'll often,
We are so good at bouncing off each other.
Okay.
we're often in a line with what we're thinking of fixing, and then we just bounce off, and it's
John's now like, shut up, we're
Yeah,
playing
shut
the
up
game.
with the
No,
game.
I'll let you off. Look, there's usually no context allowed, but that's good.
Hang on a minute. I thought this was the first time you're playing this.
Well, there's on the multi-option ones, but you're
Yeah,
right for
okay,
calling me
sorry.
out on that. Thank you,
Sorry,
Gemma.
sorry.
What? Who's the bigger perfectionist?
Oh,
It's really got you thinking, this one, hasn't it?
we're both awful.
Will's gone with Will. You really pushed him over the
I
fence on that one,
know.
and Gemma's gone with Gemma. Okay, I feel like that was a spiteful one. Who sulks more when they lose an argument? Oh, okay. I didn't know it was going to go this way. So
sulks?
Will said Gemma. Gemma said Will. Who's more likely to say "I told you so"?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, you both
I think
gone
I'm
with Will.
quite
for that.
childish.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. But at least you can admit to that.
yeah.
Who sneaks more Who sneaks more test taste during the bake? Gemma. Okay. Both said Gemma on that one. Who's got the better icing skills?
Oh, you got to break that one down. You gotta break that
am
one down.
am I missing a component?
Oh,
Well-
well, I mean, icing is quite a broad spectrum. You've got like piping skills, or you've got like smoothing skills of a cake.
I'm just going to stay as broad as icing, so you're going to have to make a decision based
Okay,
on
in
that.
which case,
I don't
sorry,
have the
Will.
technical
Well,
knowledge.
I'm going to go
Sorry.
for me because then I do the other half. So there you go.
No.
Does that feel fair? Gemma's pulling the face.
Okay.
Okay. Who's more likely to start an argument?
You little...
Oh, you both got opposites on that one. Will said Gemma. Gemma said Will.
Yeah.
Who's more likely to say yes to a last-minute wedding cake order? Yeah, you both gone with Gemma for that one.
Mainly
And
'cause-
that sounds like it's happened.
I can't say no. Yes, it has
Right,
happened.
But it's also mainly because I don't answer the phone and Gemma does. So
The practicalities of that one. And the last question,
Go on.
who's the real boss at Wilma's?
Did you say you? You're meant to say me.
Oh, sorry.
You're meant to say me.
Go on, Will. That's
You're
all right.
meant to say me.
I didn't mean to cause a row, but thank you for indulging me on that. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much
you.
for getting involved with that one. We have a closing tradition on the podcast, which is a question from my mum.
Oh, go on.
This is always, I like to shock people because this is how I know you haven't listened to a whole episode, and that's not an issue. So basically, every episode, and there's been 47 episodes now,
Right.
we get to the end and my mum sends a WhatsApp message in and ask
Does she
the
know
question.
who's coming in?
She does know who's coming in, yeah.
Okay,
So they usually related to the guest that I'm speaking to. But
Practical.
again,
Well done,
we
Mum.
never know what she's going to send through. So I'm going to play it for you.
Oh, it's an audio.
It's a voice note.
Oh, I love that.
It's a voice note, yeah. So
Has your mum been to Wilma's?
she has been to Wilma's. She's
Okay,
had a
good.
Wilma's.
Okay, yeah.
She has had a Wilma's, so she knows the
Mum.
brand. Right, okay. Hopefully the volume's right.
Hi, Gemma and Will. As you're in the business of creating wonderful cakes and pastries, I just wondered how you manage to control your weight. Thank you.
Oh, Mum.
So she's looking after my nephew at the moment, and I think she's bathing him at that time.
Okay, that's cool.
gonna
I
say,
wasn't
catch
sure
her
if she was
on the
washing
swim.
up or like
For a swim?
Yeah,
Yep.
on the beach. We literally go to the gym every single morning. So most mornings we wake up like 5:30 and we're usually in the gym by about 6:15, 6:30. And it isn't just, well, it isn't about the physique side of things, but for me, like, it makes me a better human. For my headspace, we go to the gym a lot, all the time, in fact. But Will's been bulking and I've been trying to, I've been on a calorie deficit, which is really hard trying to, at least I know exactly the calories in every product.
Well, that helps, doesn't it? Because
yeah,
I guess
it does.
that'd be one of my things about eating a Wilma's, any of your products, is how do you track that? That'd be, I would imagine that's easier for you,
Yeah.
harder for me because I'm not.
Customers
looking-
did come in not that long ago, and it was in January actually, and they were like, "Can you tell me how many calories are in this ultimate cookie?" I was like,
Do you want to
"Oh,
share that?
Do you want to know?" And they're like, "Yes, I really want to know." I was like, "But do you?" Like, this is all butter, all chocolate. There's a lot of cream in there. Like, are you sure? Yeah.
But I
go on
guess
then.
in knowing it gives you some power to, as you say, you get into a bit of a deficit and you can work against maybe some of the stuff that you are
Well,
tasting.
if it makes
as you
any
go through the
difference, I
process.
told them the calories, and they were like, "Oh, that's less than we thought." I was like,
Wow.
"Yes."
But
So that's good.
There's also a risk of getting high on your own supply, isn't there? When you're surrounded by all of this incredible. I mean, and I've eaten a lot of Wilma's products over the years, and they are absolutely incredible. I feel that it's important to say that from a non-biased perspective. But yeah, when they're surrounding you all day, how the hell do you stop yourself? Is there an
It is
addiction?
hard.
It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Like, it really is. When you're,
I'm a
I'm
sugar
lucky
addict.
because I do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. I'm often out the kitchen,
Right,
especially
okay.
now. Like, I
Yep.
wasn't, go back 4 years ago, I was in the bakery every day with Gem, smoothing cakes and whatever else. But I've sort of stepped out of that and I'm sort of more in the office doing back of house boring stuff. So I, in a way that's kind of good for my waistline because I'm not around it, because I find that when it gets to sort of 11, 12 o'clock,
Yeah.
that's like peak. You're prepping a lot of the cakes by that point, and you're shaving a lot of the cakes. So the cakes always,
Just offcuts? Is there?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes,
and
a
they
lot
all
of
go
cuts.
into a bowl for the guys to go and help themselves.
because we're up quite
Cake
early,
tacos.
by sort of 11, 12 o'clock, that is peak snacky time, because
Yeah.
you're getting ready for lunch. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
just a little bit, and back in the, we both did actually put on a fair amount of weight, didn't we? Just like snacking on stuff, and it's true, we did. So we've tried to sort of work a bit more in sort of like moderation,
Yeah.
It's really hard, like doing the social media every day. Like, I'm in the South End shop and like we'll be cracking a cookie or slicing a cake. And now a lot of the time I'll have a little bit and then I'm like, guys, you guys have it. And the team, like, they get to take home a lot of products anyway. And I'm like, who wants the cake? And they're like, yes, I'll take the cake. So it's good. Now sharing, I share a lot.
Okay.
A lot more.
Again, you're
Say
halving
moderation.
that.
Gemma's learned to share.
Yeah,
There we
you
go.
go. It all works out. So in answer to Mum's question, training,
Yeah.
really discipline from the sound of it, and just giving stuff away.
Yeah, exactly.
Giving half of the product away.
Take it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and I know you've had an incredibly busy day, and still to come in and commit the time to
I'm sorry
speak
we were
to
late.
us. Don't be silly. It's absolutely fine. But it's been a real joy to have the conversation after knowing of you and having met you briefly many years ago, to sit down and have the chat. So thank you so much
you for your
Thanks for
time.
having
time.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That's fun.
Cool. We're all done. Brilliant.